is
Round two.
All right, let's bring to the stage Hana Shepherd. How you doing?
Hi, I'm fine. How are you?
Great. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you.
So let's just jump in. You told us that your passion started in your childhood. So why don't we start there?
Okay, sure. So I grew up in a family with an ethos of public service, especially for people who had a lot of less privilege than we had. So my family members cared for the health of and taught and sort of defended other people. And growing up, I saw all of them really struggle very deeply with the limits of what they could do. And I was naive enough to think that if I just understood better the deep, complicated roots of inequality, that I could actually do something about it. So I married that naive thought with some serious nerdiness. I really love data, really love it. So the first time I got exposed to research in college, I was sort of hooked for life. So I'm a lot more circumspect right now about what role research plays in social change, but I think there's still a role to play.
So how did that front row access to injustice and inequality shape the work that you do now?
Yeah, so as we all know, inequality is a very deep, complicated, thorny issue. It involves law and politics and economics, but it also involves the social norms of the groups and the organizations, the institutions that we're a part of. So what we think, what the people around us believe is acceptable and okay. And so, for example, like if the people around us accept or condone prejudice, we are more likely to accept it, or at least not to stand up to it. So the translation of my interest into social norms is really asking, how do we disrupt this process for norms that we don't want around? How do we, are there certain people in a group who we can identify to help us sort of disrupt this process, and how do we identify them?
So with those questions about inequality, how do you take your serious nerdiness, as you call it, and start to answer those questions?
So my colleagues and I were interested in whether we could change the culture of an organization using perceptions of social norms and sort of employing particularly visible, influential people in a group to change these perceptions. And so we did that in the very messy, very complicated world of middle school. So we were interested in whether we could change middle school level patterns of peer harassment. So how much kids spread rumors about each other, or pick on each other, or call each other gay in disparaging ways. So that set of behaviors we were interested in targeting.
And so your methods in here are scientifically quite impressive. Can you talk about how you went into this messy world and were able to actually approach it from a scientific perspective?
Sure. So we had a really small but amazing team. We went into 56 middle schools, really different schools across the state of New Jersey, and we surveyed over 24,000 students. And from those surveys, we could build sort of social network maps of the patterns of interactions between students. And so what we did was half of the schools we randomized to receive this year-long grassroots intervention program that we designed. And within those schools, we randomly selected which kids would participate as the core group leading this intervention. So we called them the change makers. And what we were trying to do was get them to identify what were the issues that they wanted to see changed in their school, because the issues were different by different schools. And then how to get them to magnify the behaviors that we wanted them to model for other students. Using these social network maps, these patterns of interactions between all of the students, we could also identify who were the most visible, who were the most influential kids in each of these schools. And these are not sort of the typical popular or cool kids. These are kids who are informal leaders, both in positive and negative ways, but across lots of subgroups within a school.
And so if we can learn to change middle schoolers, we can learn to change a lot of different type of people. Within these studies, what are you finding that's going to help us make schools better, but of course everything else?
Yeah, so we were really excited about the outcome of this. So we estimated about 700 fewer peer harassment events across these 28 schools that received the year-long intervention program. And most importantly, the schools where there was a larger percentage of these visible, influential kids in that changemaker group, the program was more effective. And it's not like we needed a large percentage of these students to be part of the group in order for the intervention to work. Even having 20% of the changemaker group composed of these visible, influential kids made the program really effective.
Wow, so this was focused on middle schoolers. But what does that mean for the people in the room who want to focus on maybe working with influencers and social norms? How do they take those ideas and apply it to their work?
Yeah, so there's three kind of big takeaways for all of you. So the first is that changing perceptions of social norms is really key to changing the culture of behavior in a group. And this is sort of culture change happens at the local level. And we know that there are certain people in the group who are more able to influence what those perceptions are. So that's the first point. The second point is that using these influential people, and in particular sort of magnifying their behaviors that you want them to do, to represent, is a really effective way to create change. And again, these are not sort of the cool kids, the celebrities. These are local, informal leaders. And then the third point is that we can use the principles of social network mapping. We can use social network mapping and the principles, which is sort of about the set of relationships among people in a group, to identify these key people. And we think these principles are very widely applicable way beyond middle schools.
So now that we all have these principles as our foundation, what should we start doing differently today that we may not have been doing before?
Yeah, so this is sort of a basic point and probably one that you all are very familiar with, but because this kind of behavior change happens at the local level, it's really important for change makers to have a really, really good understanding of local context, and in particular the social context. So that means sort of what are the set of relationships between people in a group, because that can help you, gives you a much better picture of what's going on in the group and how to actually identify the kind of people that you want to enlist in change efforts. Who is visible and who is influential within a group varies a lot by group. So there might be some kinds of change efforts where enlisting celebrities or people who are widely popular is useful, but there's a lot of kinds of behaviors that are really rooted in groups for whom these celebrities are not going to be the people that you want to enlist and change. So the idea is that sort of finding these people, using these people, really presents change makers with a big opportunity for different kinds of social change.
Great.
And so to end with our classic NPR-like question, Hana, what's next?
So there's two sort of sets of projects that I'm developing from this work. So my colleagues and I are working on how to scale this kind of project. How do you find these influential people when you don't have the complete social network data that we have, when you don't go into middle schools and spend lots of time asking kids who they spend time with. So what are the heuristics that people can use to apply to lots of different groups to be able to actually find these people? And then the second set of projects I'm really excited about, I'm working with a sociologist, Adam Reich, on trying to apply the insights from this work to a different context, to the context of the workplace. And so what we're interested in is how we use social networks and these key influencers for helping low-wage workers build community and voice at work. So this is, formalizing what organizers know a lot about, but sort of using social science to formalize some of these principles.
Yes to that, right? Please. Well, thank you so much, Hana Shepherd, everybody.